So I get to the US and I ask for an Uber, and who's my Uber driver but this guy? I'm looking for some toys. Can you help me find some?
Let's see. It's everywhere.
What am I looking at?
So this is called the Hailstorm unit. The age-old question is, who's better, Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels?
Shawn Michaels.
No, you can't keep Ralph. I got to take him back. Is it true that you like G.I. Joe?
What's G.I. Joe?
For the fans of G.I. Joe, the annual Joefest Comic and Toy Convention is like our Christmas season. Between a several months long buildup of announcements regarding everything from celebrity guests, well-known artist and writer talents, larger social media personalities, and of course, an ever-growing list of professional vendors, this three-day event becomes an annual tradition you find yourself looking forward to. That said, for many, the biggest highlight will be getting to meet people in the joint G.I. Joe and pop culture fandom. Some friends will have met before, and many will be meeting for the first time, and as you'll see throughout this upload, Joefest ends up being an event that extends even beyond the time spent across the 40,000 square foot showroom floor. It's also about going to the various informational panels, attending the secondary trade night and swap meet that occurs informally after show hours on Friday and Saturday night, as well as drinking or having dinner at the bar, and most of all, just being with your friends. With this being my second Joefest, I've just began to get to know the lay of the land. Though getting to Joefest in Augusta, Georgia, all the way from where I live up in Vancouver, BC, Canada, can be a bit of a journey, as I needed to connect from Vancouver over to Minnesota for an initial flight. That flight ended up being delayed, so I hung out at the restaurant for a bit and had some drinks before embarking on a second flight over to Charlotte, North Carolina, before setting out on yet another leg of the trip by taking the drive out into Augusta, Georgia, where Joefest is held each year. Of course, a huge highlight was getting to meet a friend I've come to know quite well over the years across YouTube and other various social media outlets. Naturally, I'm talking about my good friend and toy-related channel, Mega J Retro. So I get to the US and I ask for an Uber, and who's my Uber driver but this guy? Wait a minute. What's going on here? It's like Canada came with me to the US. How does that even work? I actually meant to leave Ralph at home, but he snuck his way over to Joefest by making sure he got into my checked luggage and began making friends right away. It got to the point that my good friend Joe Recondo even gifted me a spare backpack to put some new toys in, but Ralph thought that it was a trade of some sorts and that he was part of it, and I think he wanted to skip the trip back to Canada and stay in the US with Joe. No, you can't keep Ralph. I gotta take him back. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Mega J, we're at Joefest. Should we buy some toys? Look at some stuff?
Ralph, we're doing whatever you want to do, brother, but yeah, we gotta buy some stuff.
Off to the buffet we go. Let's go.
Let's get out of here.
Many of us arrived at the Marriott in Augusta the Thursday night before Joefest, which started on Friday. So as soon as we rolled into the lobby, we were immediately greeted by Mark from the Skeletron team and Troy from the Callsign Longbow toy brand. Our other friends who ended up helping out with our Delta-17 booth, like Vincent Crash, as well as our photographer John from Emerald Night Photos, came down from the staircase shortly after, and I took a quick selfie with Ben from the Skeletron team just before we hit up the bar for some beverages. It may not mean much to most people, but for us at Joefest, the lobby area and the grand staircase leading up to the second floor mezzanine lobby area pretty much becomes our pre- and after-hours show hangout. So these areas of the Marriott Hotel have come to mean a lot to me, and I get a bit emotional now when I see these areas of the hotel in other people's videos. Will from the Wilhelm Toy and Hobby YouTube channel gifted several of us with these custom storage cases for our 1/18th scale figures, which are perfect for Delta-17 and other similarly scaled brands. We then hung out in the large hotel suite that Steve, our Delta-17 boss, arranged for me and Jay before carrying on with our weekend. Well, the suite's pretty nice, so I had a hard time figuring out where the lights were, but apparently there's one right there next to our photographer, John from Emerald Night Photos. We got Casey from Podcast from the Pit. We got Vincent right here. And is this like Mega J Retro? Did you just climb in through the window in the back there? Like that? Apparently I'm rooming... Stealth movie says, apparently I'm rooming with Mega J Retro. Anyway, yo Joe. Friday we were up early for breakfast, and as vendors, the loading in and setup in the main convention center showroom floor is pretty much an all-day event. We took the bulk of our Delta-17 inventory from Steve's hotel room and made several trips down to the main floor to set up the Delta-17 toy booth. It's hard to believe just how far things have come in a year, and you can see the differences in the setup between the prototypes that we had in 2023 to a full booth with our initial wave in 2024. The initial rush on the Friday night was quite exhilarating, and it seemed like everyone that came by our booth wanted to get some or all of the figures that we had for sale. There was also a ton of interest in our Okami Elite Sentry exclusive figure that we advertised prior to the show, and the comic was met with positive responses all around as well, particularly for those who bought it at the show and managed to read it over the weekend. We were asked to autograph some of the issues by fans of the toy line, especially with Steve as the comic author, Mega J as the letterer, and myself as editor of this issue number 1. Honestly, the group of us were exceptionally proud of how things have evolved, and we're more than a little excited to see what the future holds for the line. And I'm both proud as well and thankful of the hardworking crew that we had, including not just me and Steve, but as well as Wilhelm, Crash, John, and Mega J, who were with us for the whole weekend. Thanks for all you did for us during Joefest, and this photo of us is one that just puts a smile on my face. Of course, we also took the time to unveil our upcoming Wave 1.5 figure, which is the Hailstorm Robo-Tank unit, and Dave from the Needless Things YouTube channel was more than happy to film our surprise unveiling on the Friday night.
So this is our reveal of the show.
What am I looking at?
So this
Whoa!
is called the Hailstorm unit, right? This is a Paintmaster sample, right? You're probably the first person to film it. I do not know if you're the first person to get it uploaded.
Sure,
I have not even filmed and uploaded. There's no rules on that. If you get it up there before I do, doesn't matter.
We'll do what we can. We might be going right up to the room to put this.
Yeah. So this is an army builder through the Dark Shadows.
Wow.
So ETA, we're trying to get it out before the end of the year.
Well, the fact that I met you guys for the first time last year, and I have had product in hand for several months now, is crazy. So, oh look, we got a little variant over here.
Available in Serpent Blue.
Oh, beautiful. I can't imagine what else that could be used for.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of decals you could put onto it. We might be talking to someone like Toy Hacks to see if they can do something for it.
Oh man, that would be great.
So, yeah, spinning guns, there's a little hose here you can take off, belts come off, backpack comes off, of course it has rolling wheels. There's tow hook attachments on the front, and they will be modified on the back as well, so they stick out. So you'll actually be able to put strings on it and tow it with a helicopter and drop
Oh, beautiful, because as we all know, there is going to be a helicopter.
I also got to chat with Corey Cantaloupe, formerly of Hasbro and now with the Skeletron team, because he was the one that we brought in to sculpt this gorgeous Hailstorm figure.
So, as I mentioned, the Hailstorm was sculpted by the very brilliant Corey Cantaloupe, who's slouching on purpose to not make me feel too short. Buddy, how did you like doing a figure for us on Delta-17?
Oh, it was great. You know, it was such a cool project, you know, and I don't get to do a lot of the more robotic and, you know, machine style of characters. And so being able to really get in on that hard surface sculpting was super fun, and really get to explore what the design was of the character while we were doing the sculpt it was super cool, and you know, one of the most fun projects I've done in quite a while. You know, very different than what I normally do, but you know, really was able to throw myself into it, and yeah, really happy with how it's looking so far.
Well, it was an honor to have you on the team for that project.
Yeah,
so,
no problem. Thank you.
All right, the legend Corey Cantaloupe.
It was fun to walk around and see this gorgeous light-up display where both Marauder and Skeletron shared this large booth together. And the Roboskull remains one of the most, if not the item, that I am most excited to get in the very near future.
Okay, gentlemen, can you confirm or deny the existence of a flying red skull?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Neither confirm nor deny. The said red skull. All right. So, if my theory holds true, we shall have one very soon.
Skeletron also brought over original Palitoy designer Bob Brechin, who worked on the 1984 Roboskull among other things, and it was a pleasure to meet him in person. I had Bob sign my copy of Total Action Force The Battle Years Volume 1, and I also went to the Total Toy Books booth to have the authors of this book, Brian Hickey and Patty Lennon, sign it as well. And it was cool to see their setup and preview of some of the future Total Toy Books projects as well. Big Bad Toy Store was also at the show, and I got to talk to Joel, who heads up their business. There was also several original Hasbro G.I. Joe team members such as Doug Hart, as well as Mark Pennington at the Operation Recall booth, where Carson had sold me some of these Operation Recall trading cards. I also ran into Michael Charles Hill, who worked on some of the original G.I. Joe and Transformers cartoons of the 80s, as well as Mark Webber, who had previously worked for Hasbro's global brand development. Super 7 also had a large presence and unveiled their 3 3/4 inch O-ring style G.I. Joe prototypes, so I took some time to have a short conversation with Brian Flynn. Ryan from the Toy Federation YouTube channel and Toy Store was also around, and I got to meet Pixel Dan and asked him if he could sign a copy of the Masters of the Universe book that he authored. Also met Dan Larson from Secret Galaxy, and I was both honored and surprised that he recognized me in person, which I told him left me feeling a little bit starstruck. Four Horsemen Studios also attended the show to show off their Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions, and Figura Obscura products, so I took some time to chat with the Horsemen's Director of Sales and Marketing, Jeremy Gerard.
Have you heard of a toy line called Mythic Legions?
I have heard of a toy line called Mythic Legions.
Is it okay? Is it good?
I may be a little biased, but I'd like to say that yes, I think Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions, they're very good toy lines.
Oh, okay. I'll be sure to check some out.
Look what I got.
Nice toy.
Ramen Toy was also there to show off some product, so it was nice to see them attend their first Joefest to get a feel for how the customer base will be over here.
I'm looking for some toys. Can you help me find some?
Let's see. It's everywhere.
Everywhere?
It's everywhere.
Everywhere. Everywhere. Can you make some for me to purchase as well?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk.
Okay.
Making new friends here. Or just old friends meeting in person.
Meeting in person.
Meeting in person. All right. You have a good show.
Thank you.
Simply walking and roaming the sales floor, Joefest was that darn good. And while I still have a lot more to talk about and a lot more to show you, let's just let the music roll for a little while as you, the viewer, takes in some of the atmosphere.
Is it true that you like G.I. Joe?
What's G.I. Joe?
I'll tell you all about it.
Oh, okay. Please tell me.
I'm gonna hit stop now.
In the simplest of terms, it was just nice to be at this show, and when you're there, the adrenaline is so high, and the perpetually blissful environment is something that you just never want to see come to an end. There was certainly some great cosplay, and on several occasions I was gifted with some fine artwork. For example, one of my best friends in the world, Hans Chow, gifted me some of these prints for Lady J and Delta-17's Death Sparrow, for which he included a nice personal note. An artist named Tavertko, who I knew from the Canadian Facebook groups, gifted me this Sergeant Slaughter proof, and a gentleman named Mark gifted me with a few items as well, and stayed around to express his appreciation of the Toy Connections YouTube channel, which is just something nice and heartwarming to hear. The days were pretty much busy from the early waking hours of the morning all the way to the early hours of the next day, so it was actually pretty hard to get some sleep. I took some time to hang out with Travis from A Toy Kinda Mood, as well as Baldy Locke's Reviews, talented customizer Tony's Figs, and also Lawrence from A Punk with Toys. This of course meant that Lawrence and I skipped straight past any and all toy talk and went straight towards bantering over wrestling.
The age-old question is, who's better, Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels?
Shawn Michaels.
I will forgive you only because I came south of the border, right? Otherwise, if we were up in Canada, that stuff's not going to fly.
Isn't that where Bret Hart tapped out?
We're going to cut this clip right now. All right. End show. Clip. See ya. Bye.
I then ended up joining a panel with the aforementioned individuals on the Saturday after show hours, for which we talked about the recent G.I. Joe classified reveals while interacting with the audience. And speaking of panels, on Sunday, Mega J Retro invited a bunch of us to another panel to talk a little bit about the new reveals that we saw at Joefest. Mega J and I took time after 2 of the days also to hang out on live streams with some friends who couldn't make it to Joefest. I did make a visit over to Sarge's booth, which was actually right next to the Delta-17 setup, and got my custom Mountie Sergeant Slaughter figure autographed by the man himself. And one thing that surprised me was that even after hours at the bar, Sarge came up on the Saturday night while I was filming and gave me a chokehold from behind without me noticing. At first, I didn't realize it was him, but wondered why some people were looking over at us, and apparently I turned around with a shocked expression when I saw who it was. The audio is going to be a little bit hard to hear, but he does mention hoping to come out to Vancouver again one day, up in my neck of the woods.
Thank you. It's always an honor. Always an honor. Can't wait to come to Vancouver. I'd be honored. Yeah, I know. Another Cooper Clutch in Vancouver.
And even aside from the showroom floor and the bar, after hours on both Friday and Saturday, as I mentioned, you can have a great time with the informal trade and swap meet. This is where collectors just casually set up along the wide hallways on the second floor and just make trades or purchases with one another. Like I said, there's so much to do after hours. It's to the point that you could be up all day and night and still not see everything. In some cases, I'd even hear news secondhand from panels that occurred while I was elsewhere, such as the reveal of the 6-inch Cops and Crooks line that Fresh Monkey Fiction will be doing. As for my own haul, I was gifted with a few more items, namely a 1982 AF-7 Action Force boat that my good buddy Crash gave me. He also got me this sealed Sergeant Savage pilot figure, and he also added in an old school wrestling magazine, a graded Macho Man Randy Savage card, and a Sergeant Slaughter figure for my son. There were some attendees that came over from the UK, some of whom I mentioned earlier, but I managed to get the Palitoy Z-Force version of the Mobat tank with a Z-Force version of Steeler with it. The same seller had the Action Force SAS Panther, which is a redeco of the Vamp, along with their version of Snake Eyes as a driver that's curiously known as Stalker. I then picked up an original Red Shadows Red Jackal figure, which was during the after hours swap meet. On the Sunday, I also got this complete 1970s era Talking Adventure Team Commander from the 12-inch G.I. Joe line, and of course took home a few of our Okami Elite Sentry figures for my own collection, along with some other Delta-17 goodies from our booth. Derek from the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom team gifted me this Lexion figure on the way out, which was one of the last things that I put into my luggage. And to help out our friend the Toy Sorceress, I got this custom Mr. T from the Lone Wolf Toys booth to ship to her later on. I'm probably leaving out a lot of information in this video, as there was just so much to see. Each aisle would feature one G.I. Joe toy, holy grail after another, and it got a little bit overwhelming, albeit in a good way. And I'm quite sure that's why most would agree that few things give greater joy than going over to Joefest. The fact that people came in from all over the US, and some from Canada just like I did, and so many other parts of the world says something about this event. Ultimately, we were there on Delta-17's expense, and Steve, thank you for the opportunity to not only bring me into the company as a shareholder, but also for allowing several of the friends that we both trust to share this experience. We made a lot of deals, and a lot of people were holding Delta-17 items on the way out. They were giving us a lot of feedback about the figures, the comic, and all the other new swag that they got, such as patches and stickers. Even as the show was closing on Sunday, and despite the sad feelings I was going through, I remember that I went through similar emotions during the 2023 show. And now that I've come here for the 2024 event, I know that 2025 can't come soon enough, and that we'll all be together again, congregating at our favorite 3-day-long G.I. Joe hangout. There's nothing like being surrounded by your own people, people who just understand the hobby as you do, and who just understand you as a person. Interestingly, even after show hours on Sunday, there were still people hanging out, and that was still going on even after Jay and I departed at midnight to catch separate flights on Monday morning back to Canada. It's a true testament to just how much fun we all had being together. Still, it was sad to hit the road and go back in the opposite direction, and just like last year, a part of me is still standing in that Marriott lobby talking to friends for hours and hours on end, or walking through the showroom floor talking to people about Delta-17. Honestly, there's no other place I'd rather be. Naturally, it was a bit emotional to say bye to Jay as he parted for the eastern part of Canada while I headed back out west to where I live. He was the last person I ended up saying goodbye to, which occurred at the Charlotte, North Carolina airport just a few hours north of Augusta. But in truth, no amount of time with friends like these will ever be enough. But hey, we can always look back at videos like this one and remember that we shared such good memories. For anyone that I didn't give enough of my time to, I sincerely apologize and just trust that I'll be back. For those who I did get to share this experience with, well, I can't wait for the next one. And to anyone who couldn't make it that wanted to be here, let's just hope that videos like these can give you a part of the experience and to bring this part of Joefest onto your screen so that you can witness some of the excitement secondhand. And after all that, there's really not much more I can say. So, see you next year. And after all that, I'm finally home, and I just can't wait till the next Joefest. And if you happen to like this video and you want to keep looking at Joefest walkthroughs, you can have a look at my video from the 2023 Joefest by clicking on this link right over here, or for a look at some toy histories, you can click on this playlist right over here. Otherwise, yo Joe, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching, and take care.